There is a moment that doesn't announce itself. No warning, no signal, no gradual buildup that prepares you for what's about to unfold. One day feels like every other day, and then suddenly, everything changes. Have you ever wondered why some of the biggest shifts in life arrive without any visible signs? Why the most powerful turning points often come in silence? You've been waiting for something. Maybe clarity. Maybe recognition. Maybe a breakthrough that feels long overdue. But nothing around you seems to confirm it. No external validation. No clear indication that anything is moving in your favor. It can make you question everything. Are you on the right path? Is anything actually happening behind the scenes? But what if the absence of signs doesn't mean absence of progress? Think about it. Some of the most important processes in life are invisible while they are happening. Growth doesn't always make noise. Change doesn't always show itself immediately. There are phases where everything appears still on the surface, but underneath, something is aligning with precision. Something is being prepared in ways you cannot yet see. Why is it that we expect transformation to always be obvious? Why do we rely so heavily on visible proof before we allow ourselves to believe that something meaningful is on its way? There is a quiet tension in waiting without evidence. It challenges your patience. It tests your mindset. It forces you to confront your doubts. Because when there are no signs, the only thing left to rely on is your internal stability. Your ability to stay grounded without constant reassurance. And this is where most people lose their direction. They start looking outward for confirmation that was never meant to come early. They start comparing timelines. They start assuming that silence means stagnation. But what if silence is actually part of the process? What if the lack of visible movement is intentional? Consider this. When something is being built with precision, it often requires time away from distraction. Not everything is meant to be revealed in stages. Some things arrive fully formed, without warning, because their impact depends on that suddenness. If you knew exactly when everything would change, would it carry the same weight? Or does the unexpected nature of it give it power? There is strength in continuing forward, even when nothing around you reflects your effort. There is resilience in maintaining focus when there are no external rewards yet. And there is a certain kind of discipline in trusting that timing doesn't always align with your expectations. Right now, it may feel like nothing is happening, like you're standing still while everything else moves. But what if this phase is not about visible results? What if it's about positioning, preparation, alignment? Because when something finally arrives without symptoms, without signs, it doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't ease its way in. It shifts everything at once. And the real question is not whether it will happen. The real question is, will you be ready when it does? You tell yourself you're ready. You've been patient. You've stayed consistent. You've endured the silence. But readiness is a deeper question than it first appears. It's not just about wanting the moment to arrive. It's about who you've become while waiting for it. Because when something shifts suddenly, there is no time to adjust your mindset afterward. There is no pause button that lets you catch up emotionally or mentally. The version of you that exists right now is the version that will have to handle what comes next. So ask yourself honestly, have you been preparing or have you just been waiting? There is a difference. Waiting can be passive. It can be filled with doubt, hesitation, and second-guessing. Preparation, on the other hand, is active. It shapes your perspective. It refines your discipline. It builds a kind of inner structure that doesn't rely on external conditions to stay stable. Most people focus on when things will happen. Very few focus on how they will handle it when it does. And that's where the real separation begins. Imagine something significant entering your life right now without warning. An opportunity. A shift in your circumstances. A door opening that you've been hoping for. Would you recognize it immediately? Or would you hesitate, question it, and potentially let it pass, because it didn't arrive the way you expected? Sometimes the lack of signs is what causes people to miss the moment entirely. They become so conditioned to look for gradual indicators that when something arrives suddenly, it feels unfamiliar, almost unreal, and instead of stepping into it, they step back. Why does that happen? Because the mind seeks patterns. It wants predictability. It feels safer when it can trace a clear path from cause to effect. But life doesn't always operate in straight lines. Some of the most defining moments break that pattern completely. This is why internal clarity matters more than external signals. If you know who you are, what you stand for, and where you're going, you won't need constant confirmation from the outside world. You won't need a series of signs to validate your next step. You'll move with a sense of quiet certainty, even when the situation feels unfamiliar. And that certainty doesn't come overnight. It is built in the unseen moments, in the days when nothing seems to change, in the moments where you choose to stay focused instead of drifting into frustration. So instead of asking, when will it happen? Shift the question. Ask yourself, am I becoming the person who can handle it when it does? Because sudden change doesn't just bring opportunity. It brings responsibility. It demands awareness. It requires you to operate at a level you may not have been tested at before. And if you haven't prepared internally, even the best opportunity can feel overwhelming. But if you have done the work, if you have strengthened your mindset, sharpened your awareness, and built your discipline in silence, then when the moment comes, you won't panic. You won't hesitate. You'll recognize it. And more importantly, you'll step into it without needing any signs to tell you that it's real. There is something most people misunderstand about sudden change. They think it's random. They think it appears out of nowhere, disconnected from everything that came before it. But what looks sudden on the outside is often the result of a long, quiet build-up that no one else could see. Every moment you stayed consistent when it felt pointless. Every time you held your ground when it would have been easier to give up. Every silent decision to keep going when there was no visible reward. It all accumulates. It stacks in ways that aren't immediately obvious. And then, one day, it reaches a point where it can no longer remain hidden. That's when the shift happens. But here's the part that challenges most people. During that build-up phase, there is no applause, no acknowledgement, no reassurance that what you're doing even matters. It can feel like you're investing energy into something that isn't giving anything back. And that feeling can be heavy. Have you ever questioned whether your effort is being wasted? Whether the silence means you're moving in the wrong direction? That's where perspective becomes everything. Because if you rely only on visible results to measure progress, you'll miss the deeper transformation that's happening within you. Your thinking is evolving. Your patience is expanding. Your ability to stay focused without immediate gratification is strengthening. These are not small things. These are foundational shifts, and they are exactly what prepare you for moments that arrive without warning. Imagine receiving everything you've been hoping for before you've developed the mindset to sustain it. Would it last? Or Would it collapse under pressure? This is why timing often feels delayed. Not because nothing is happening, but because something essential is still being formed within you. Something that can't be rushed. Something that has to be built layer by layer, in silence. The absence of signs is not always a delay. Sometimes it's protection. Protection from stepping into something before you're fully ready to handle it. And when you start to see it that way, the waiting changes. It becomes less about frustration and more about awareness. You begin to pay attention to how you're growing instead of what you're lacking. You start to recognize that even in stillness, there is movement. Even in silence, there is progress. So the question shifts again. Instead of asking, why isn't anything happening? You start asking, what is this phase trying to build in me? Because every phase has a purpose. Every quiet period carries a lesson, and every unseen moment is shaping how you will respond when everything finally comes together. And it will come together. Not gradually. Not in a way that gives you time to slowly adjust, but in a way that feels immediate, defining, unavoidable. The kind of shift that doesn't just change your circumstances, it changes your perspective entirely. And when that moment arrives, you'll realize something important. It didn't start when everything became visible. It started long before that, in the silence, in the uncertainty, in the moments when you chose to keep going without any signs at all. And when it finally happens, it won't feel the way you imagined, not because it's less than what you expected, but because it's different. More real, more immediate. There will be no dramatic build-up, no clear line that separates the before from the after. Just a moment where everything quietly shifts and you realize there is no going back. This is what makes sudden change so powerful. It doesn't ask for your permission. It doesn't wait until you feel completely comfortable. It arrives when the conditions are right, not when your doubts are gone. And in that moment, all the questions you carried during the waiting phase begin to fade. You stop asking, is this really happening? And start realizing, this is it. But here's what most people don't talk about. The arrival is only the beginning. What comes after requires just as much awareness as the waiting did. Because stepping into something new means letting go of the version of yourself that existed before it. Can you release old habits that no longer serve you? Can you move forward without constantly looking back at what used to feel familiar? Growth is not just about gaining something new. It's also about leaving certain things behind, and that can feel uncomfortable. There is a strange pull toward what you already know, even if it no longer aligns with where you're going. The mind tries to return to familiar patterns, familiar doubts, familiar limitations. But this is where your preparation reveals its true value. Everything you built in silence, your discipline, your clarity, your ability to stay grounded without external validation, this is what keeps you steady now. Because sudden change doesn't remove challenges. It transforms them. Instead of wondering when your moment will come, you start navigating how to sustain it. Instead of searching for signs, you begin to rely on your awareness. You become more present, more intentional, more aligned with your direction. And perhaps the most important shift of all, you stop needing everything to make perfect sense. Not every step will be clear. Not every outcome will be predictable. But you move forward anyway, with a sense of trust in your ability to adapt, to learn, to remain steady even when things evolve quickly. So when you look back at the time when there were no signs, no symptoms, no visible movement, you see it differently. It wasn't empty. It was essential. It was the phase where you were shaped without distraction, where your foundation was built without pressure, where you learned to stand without needing constant reassurance. And now, as everything begins to unfold, you carry that strength with you. Because in the end, it was never just about something arriving suddenly. It was about who you became before it did. And that is what makes the moment sustainable. That is what allows it to last. That is what turns a sudden shift into something meaningful, something lasting, something real. So if you are still in that silent phase, where nothing seems to be happening, remember this. Silence does not mean absence. It means preparation. And when the moment comes, it won't need to announce itself. You will know. It's easy to think the story ends when everything finally falls into place. That once the shift happens, the uncertainty disappears and clarity takes over completely. But real growth doesn't end at arrival. In many ways, that's where a new kind of awareness begins. Because now, you're not just dealing with potential, you're dealing with reality. What once lived in your thoughts, your hopes, your quiet expectations, is now in front of you. Tangible, immediate. And with that comes a different kind of responsibility. Not the pressure to be perfect, but the responsibility to stay aligned with what brought you here in the first place. Will you remain grounded now that things are changing, or will you get pulled into distractions that come with new circumstances? It's a subtle test, but a powerful one. When there were no signs, your focus had to come from within. You had to rely on discipline, on patience, on a deeper sense of direction. But now that something has shifted, external factors start to appear. Opinions, opportunities, noise, and not all of it will be helpful. This is where many people lose their balance. They waited so long for something to happen that, when it finally does, they start moving too quickly. They try to do everything at once. They chase every option, every possibility, every voice that promises more. And in doing so, they drift away from the very mindset that prepared them for this moment. So pause for a second and ask yourself, can you move forward without losing your center? Because staying aligned after the shift is just as important as staying patient before it. There is a quiet strength in moving with intention instead of urgency, in choosing depth over speed, in recognizing that not every opportunity needs to be taken, and not every path needs to be followed. Sometimes the real power lies in what you choose to ignore. And this awareness doesn't come from outside. It comes from the same place that carried you through the silent phase. That internal steadiness, that ability to observe without reacting impulsively. That clarity that doesn't depend on constant validation. You've already proven that you can handle uncertainty. Now the question is, can you handle momentum? Because momentum can be just as challenging. It can pull you in different directions if you're not anchored. It can make everything feel urgent, even when it's not. And if you're not careful, it can cause you to lose sight of what actually matters. So as things begin to unfold, remind yourself of something simple but powerful. You don't have to rush what is already meant to move forward. You don't have to force what is already unfolding. And you don't have to prove anything to anyone by moving faster than your clarity allows. Take a moment to notice how far you've come, not in terms of external results, but in terms of who you are now compared to who you were when this journey started. The patience you built, the discipline you developed, the awareness you strengthened, that is the real foundation. Because circumstances will continue to change. New phases will come. New challenges will appear. But if your foundation is strong, you won't be shaken by every shift. You will adapt. You will remain steady. And most importantly, you will continue to move forward with purpose, not pressure. So whether the moment has already arrived for you, or it's just around the corner, carry this with you. The silence prepared you. The shift revealed you. And what you choose to do next, that's what truly defines everything that follows.